Peace Corps gives us a chance to show a side of our country which is too often submerged. Our desire to live in peace, our desire to be of help. There can be no greater service to our country, and no source of pride more real than to be a member of the Peace Corps of the United States.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the My Peace Corps Story podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Lloyd, and I'm here to help tell the stories of current and returned Peace Corps volunteers. If you like what you hear today, be sure to let me know over at mypeacecorpsstory.com and connect with me on Instagram at My Peace Corps Story or on Facebook by searching for My Peace Corps Story. Additionally, head on over to iTunes and leave a review for the show. 5-star reviews are extremely appreciated, but more than anything, I want to know what you think so I can better serve my audience. Today on the show, I talked to Chris Cannito, a primary literacy volunteer currently serving in St Vincent and the Grenadines. I was fortunate enough to talk with him while he's still in country because as he's wrapping up his second year, he's actually preparing to extend for a third year. We talk about his big projects that he's completed, how he's integrated with the community, and then playing rugby, a sport that he loves, while he's serving in the Peace Corps. I think you guys will really enjoy the story and gain a better appreciation for what it means to be a volunteer. This episode is definitely going to be great for anybody looking into the Peace Corps. Well, without further delay, here's the show.
This is
my Peace Corps.
Peace Corps.
My Peace Corps.
My Peace Corps story.
Story.
My name is Chris Cannito, and this is my Peace Corps story.
Hey Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, doing very well out here in St Vincent and the Grenadines on this lovely Friday evening.
Yeah, this is pretty fun, actually, being able to Skype and interview someone who is, still a volunteer, still out in the field. Yeah,
definitely still out in the field. I'm glad the Wi-Fi was working today because we were planning on going for a hike in the rain. Usually when it rains, we lose the current and lose the Wi-Fi. So pretty lucky for now. But things are going well in the village today.
Uh-huh.
Very low key day, summer day.
Very cool.
School's out, yeah.
So before we really get into the meat and potatoes of the interview, what do you want to let everybody know, let all the listeners know about you, your service, just anything you'd like to share? Yeah,
that's a big question, but so my name is Chris Cannito. I am serving with the EC Group 87, that is Eastern Caribbean Group 87, and I'm with the Primary Literacy Project. So the only groups in the EC and that the project right now, and that is Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and Grenada. All the projects is under literacy education for the next 6 years, and there's some Peace Corps response posting. But I've been here. I came in June 2015, and I'm actually extending my service. So if I was not extending my service, I'd actually be having to clean up my house right now and because we had our COS conference in beginning of May or middle of May, and so I've been here for over 2 years now in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a lovely, lovely country. And I'm just getting ready right now. Summer holidays started about a week ago, and then it was the carnival season. Carnival actually ends, if you want to talk about that more. Carnival ends the school year. And then basically right now, my girlfriend's gotten a visit. I'm getting ready to get some summer camps and summer projects, but mostly I'm getting ready to basically get work done on the grant. The big reason, the meat and potatoes, of why I'm going to be here for another year. Don't just love staying here in the community, but that's a big reason why I'm staying onto my project within my village of South Rivers here in St. Vincent, is to continue the literacy project within the school with the teachers and the students.
So they're teaching literacy, and you said you made a brief mention of a grant that you're working on right now.
Yeah.
What's that for?
So there's a grant, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. There's the mainland of St. Vincent, and then there's the Grenadines, which are about 30, there's a little background, 30 islands, some of them uninhabited. Some of them public, and then some of them privately owned. And so one of the ones that's privately owned is actually called Mustique, and they have a charitable trust. And if you've ever heard of the island Mustique, that's where people like Bill Gates, that's where people like Mick Jagger are. They run a foundation there, so it's kind of crazy. And you can't publicly go there, but they have it's almost like two different planets within the same 10-mile island region. And so they run a really powerful and I don't speak in representative of them, but they run a very well-to-do charitable organization, and if you're lucky, your school or your project can connect with them. So we're trying to connect with them to basically help fund a literacy program that I helped design with some teachers and a local community member. And that kind of popped up just opportunity-wise. I know it's probably when you were volunteer, the key word they always throw out is integration. Mm-hmm. And so it just came about just being like the reality of the stuff that's happening in my school and the communities, the ups and downs. A lot of opportunities came about towards the end of my would-be service that really made it clear. And if with the 3 goals in the Peace Corps, you always want to lend some credence towards sustainability. So like I know in my heart of hearts, if I was to leave, a lot of this stuff would fall through. Mm-hmm. And that's for reasons good and bad. But just the reality of the intricacies of the community I live in, wonderful communities, but it definitely has some very some big detriments, whether it's with the educational system or just with like the level of some of the levels of the livelihoods here of some of the people and the students. But yeah, so that's through Mustique, and then I'll be able to continue working with my counterpart teacher who I'm partnered with, and then with a committee built up and everything. So basically we're just trying to form some funds about 12,000 EC. So that's about maybe, I can do that. I have my calculator right here. That's like 12,000 EC. That's about just under $5,000 American. So it's really not that big it's not big in the terms of the US, but here, something like that with this grant, it can really lay the groundwork in, and we're trying to make a permanent library, and we're trying to basically change the way in which the teachers are providing literacy instruction to the kids with their daily lessons and stuff like that. And so it took about 2 years to figure out how to do that. So I would feel really bad if I left. Not that I'm ever going to figure out how to do it 100% every day, but I knew in my heart of hearts I would feel it wouldn't be as good as a job if it could have been. And I'm very lucky that I got the support from my amazing girlfriend and my parents and my friends at home to continue forward for 12 more months. But it's only going to be 12 more months. I'm not going to be here. I won't be doing, I know there's people that extend. But I'm looking forward to it. And also it'll let me get into some of my, dig my teeth more into some of my other secondary projects, which I really enjoy.
I completely understand. I mean, you know, day one, you're thinking, oh my gosh, 2 years, like 2 years is a long time. And then you get to the end of 2 years, it's like, it's nowhere near long enough. I barely feel like I know anything. I halfway understand the language, and stuff's just starting to work. Like I've got these projects, and it's like, I don't know if I'm ready to go. I mean, I think that's sort of a universal thing that you're feeling. And it's great that you have the support and the ability to continue that on and try to build something that's actually going to be, self-sustaining with this library.
Hopefully.
Well, hopefully. I mean, that's the goal. I mean, the only thing you can do is try. I mean,
exactly. But there's people here that've been living in the community there for 15 years, and they're like, oh yeah, he's new to here. I was like, he's been here 15 years. Like, where was he before? And and because there's people here that their whole livelihoods are in this village or on this island of within St Vincent, the mainland. But I'm still learning each and every day, and I'm not taking this experience for granted, because I think if you treat it like a grind, or if you treat it like a job, or especially, I mean, when you were in the Peace Corps, 2012 to 2014?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, it's changed so much. When I came in 2015, I can't imagine what it was like. Every Peace Corps experience is going to be different, even within the EC, let alone within different corners of the globe. Mm-hmm. Like I had one of my best friends, the Peace Corps in Rwanda, and he's closing the service, and we talk when we can, and the difficulties I have are definitely difficulties that he have, and I have friends that did it in Mongolia, or Lesotho, and or Tanzania and stuff like that, and it's just it's totally different. So I mean, it gives me a lot of hope that people are still going out for it, though. The numbers are still steadily rising, and this work is needed much more than ever nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. So as a literacy volunteer, what does that really look, day to day? Because I know a lot of people, when they're thinking about Peace Corps, thinking about applying for Peace Corps, they see these postings of, I'm going to be a health volunteer, an education volunteer, and it's pretty amorphous. And then you get on the ground, and it's even more amorphous.
Yeah.
But for you, what is that?
you wear a lot of different hats, and it's basically under the education project. So even as an educator in the States, I did AmeriCorps with City Year in Philadelphia before, and I was a co-teacher before that. But in college, I studied political science and art, so I had like no background. And my parents were in education, and I think that helped bring it into that spectrum. But here, my day-to-day, I'm tied directly to a school within my community. And so within the EC, all of the EC, the project is primary literacy. So that's between kindergarten to grade 6 in primary schools. And it's there are response postings, and some of those Peace Corps response, if people don't know what that is, at least in the cases of the people I know that done it, that like usually sets in the groundwork for another project to come in, like whether it's environmental or like youth development. And here within St. Vincent and the Grenadines and within all of the EC, this was one of the first like 3 original sites that the Peace Corps was in. So we just had the 50th year anniversary here. And if you look at the books in St. Vincent, it's been everything from health to small business. And it's just what the needs of the country right now is very much literacy. And so my day-to-day, I'm tied to the school calendar. And since the big thing is towards sustainability, I'm tied. I have a counterpart teacher that I came into, and she's wonderful, Miss Johnson. I was tied into grade 2, but then also like with my experiences, and you're talking about like the fluidity of service. I ended up working with in my post grade K to 6 directly, whether it's like hopping in and co-teaching different classes. It's not a permanent library space, but it's basically a space where we had books, but there's no system tied to it really before. And so basically trying to manage that and come up from the top with that. And then it's really trying to bring new techniques to the teachers, because the big thing is trying to bring child-friendly techniques, because within parts of the world, and especially developing parts of the world, they do use corporal punishment a lot. And it is moving away. But as an educator within the U.S., that's definitely like you would never see that. I mean, maybe 20, 30 years ago in certain types of school districts and stuff like that. But within the U.S., I mean, within the EC, it's a pretty big norm. And so trying to move teachers towards like more child-friendly practices. And also just like the biggest thing I'm trying to impart with that is that like when you invest in a child's literacy, and especially like in their ability to read and comprehend and all this, like it opens up so many doors within them. But especially within a small community like this, you're really investing in the future players of your community, your future community leaders and stuff like that. And you can either have a lot of people that are undereducated and then get involved with drugs and crime and God knows what else, or you can have people that are striving to going on through. And St. Vincent has it pretty interesting. They have compulsory education so everyone gets in the secondary school. And one of the big aims of that is like the best schools in the country are usually in the capital of the country. And so a big aim of that is to prepare a lot of the grade 6 students. It's almost something that you'd see like when students in the U.S. taking the SATs, the big standardized test they take at the end of the year. And like and they rank all the kids that take it. And so the kids at the very, very top go to the best schools in the country, and then the other kids go to the local secondary schools. And some of them are really good, and a lot of it's what you make of it. There's some very good ones, they're very good individuals, but a lot of it is the systemic issues tied to corruption or dissonant politics and whatnot. But there's a lot of very delicate pressures or intense pressures that I definitely wouldn't have been as open-minded if I didn't do AmeriCorps before this in the U.S., in Philadelphia. And that was a great experience. But also just like, I knew it took 2 years to understand it, because it's like you see kids that have to miss school because they got to work on the farm. And sometimes some of the stuff they're farming isn't cattle. Sometimes it's weed, or sometimes it's backbreaking work. And the kids are really, it shows though, like, I don't know, whether it's here or the other islands I've seen or my other friends have done the Peace Corps, like if you get to bring anything to the table, it's utterly appreciated. And like if you go into it with the right intentions, it's not gonna be like a Disney movie. You're not gonna change the world. I mean, a lot of these kids will hopefully be reading, but it's just, I don't know, interrupting with positive experiences along these kids' timelines, because some of these people live wonderfully beautiful lives that we don't get a sense of that kind of community in the U.S. But some of them live some of the toughest stuff you'll ever hear. And there are people within our own country that are feeling that too, whether in Philadelphia or D.C. or parts of New York and everything. I mean, I don't know. But in terms of the literacy project, I'm tied directly to the school. And so with that calendar, my summer is open now. And so the aim of that is like I'm working on the grant and working on some summer camps and stuff like that. My secondary projects, I'm involved with the rugby union, Special Olympics, and a radio show. So try and mix it all up. And then trying to do some social stuff too. Carnival was a big one that just ended. And that's a very culturally important time. It's not the most culturally important time, but that's a cool, very unique Caribbean and West Indian experience. That's always a fun one. But in terms of my day-to-day, my village is really big on sports, and I'm really big on there's a local gym that's constructed, so I'm usually up at like, if I'm running and stuff like that, I'm usually up at like 4:30 because it gets really hot. It gets really, really, really hot. And when my girlfriend was here last year, she was training for a marathon, and I think we made the mistake of running at like noon one day, and I said like it's gonna be really like, that was a mistake I made when I was first living here, because people were like, why are you running right now? And then I'd be dead for like a day and a half. The sun is too much. But usually up and exercise, or like cleaning the house and stuff, like making sure the house is clean and stuff like that. People have a lot of pride in like the material, not materialistic, but like if you have something, like you keep it in good wear and tear, because there's no, I mean, for instance, where I live in the island, there's no ATM except in the capital. So, and that's like an hour, that's almost like 2 hour, if I'm lucky, if I catch a van or something like that, or not walking and stuff. But usually depends on the day of the week. So up early, like exercising, getting my stuff ready for school. The school starts at 9, so definitely later than school in the States. So school in the States as an educator, when I was in Philly, it was like, I had to be there like before 7 o'clock and stuff like that. My girlfriend was a teacher in Brooklyn, and I think she was up at like 5 to get to school. So you have a lot of time that you can mold in your own. So I try and use my time wisely. And so then the school day starts, it depends on the day of the week. So like Mondays, it's a very big Christian culture here. And that's, I nothing against that, but it very much standardizes the schedule and a lot of the lesson plans. So like, say like Monday, the whole school, like morning prayer, and it's like, it doesn't eat up, but it's supposed to be like a 30-minute thing. It could be almost an hour. So it's like, it depends on the day. And then the school day ends at 3, so it's from 9 to 3, and they get an hour for lunch, and they get a 15-minute break. So, and then, so you really got to target your time of when you want to get the most done in your day. And I remember the first couple months, it's just like you try to meet with someone and like, all right, we'll meet tomorrow. You don't get to meet with someone for like 2 weeks or something. And it's not, in terms of like, if anyone's listening from like education, I know when I was an educator in the U.S. or serving within AmeriCorps, like, you'd have staff meetings every week. You have like a monthly staff meeting. You have a monthly staff meeting here, and that might be like a 2 to 3 hour, almost 4 hour meeting. It's just so, and it's just like, sometimes it's like the airing of grievances. Sometimes like it's planning important stuff and everything like that. But for my basic day, say after morning prayer, so my service has changed a lot over the past 2 years. When I was doing a lot of diagnostic testing, a lot of finding out where these students were, and you use means that are both provided from the Ministry of Education, stuff that you have from your own background, and also stuff that's provided by the Peace Corps. So if you're coming into education, that's what you want to get. You want to get a baseline for all your students and such. But usually it'd be like, if I was doing testing, I'd be doing testing. I was doing pullouts, and the first 2 hours in the morning, it'd be a mix between pullouts and testing, then push-ins. And then usually the afternoons, after lunch, well, during lunch, 5 days out of the week, I would have like lunch library for the kids. And all this stuff on paper sounds great, but it took a really long time, because a lot of the kids have not had hands on a book at all. So you get books that be coming back torn up, or like they're covered in something you don't want to know. I could count on the hands, or like, I know in the States like a dog ate my homework. Well, here it's pretty likely like a mouse or a rat or something ate your book or something. But that's something you don't expect. You think like, okay, I'm going to come in with these new lessons, and I'm going to come in with some manipulatives, and we're going to make some posters. And then you're like, oh wait, like you find that you have students in grade 2 that can read at grade 6 because they have a very sustainable home life. Then you find kids that in grade 6 that can't read in kindergarten. So you're like, what do you do? And some of the classes are like 32 students. Some of them are 28. Some of them are like almost 40 kids. And if there's only one teacher in there, or sometimes there's teachers that are subject specific. So there's a lot of intricacies. So, but during a school day, so the day ends at 3, and then maybe I stay. If it's Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'd have to go catch a van to Kingstown, where I'd help coach the national team with like the fitness and stuff, the rugby team. And then certain days of the month, I'm doing the radio show, and so you gotta miss a school day of that. A big thing I know that is troublesome for students that are in like at-risk students within the U.S. is like consistency. And so consistency here, like if it's raining too hard, there's no school. Or like there's a day called salary day where you can't pay your bills online, so you gotta go to the Capitol and pay all your stuff. So you have like 3 teachers there, or like you have a lot of juggling to do and stuff like that. And it's not that staff members don't want to communicate. It's just like that standard of professional communication isn't always in place. And then also like the standard of like the infrastructure within the banking systems and the systems of payment and stuff like that aren't always in place. I mean, a lot of the stuff you could call and set up, but sometimes you might not have service, or sometimes you're going to run out of credit on your phone if you're trying to call for stuff like that. So it's a lot of these infrastructural bumps and stuff like that like I feel like it honestly took 2 years, making a lot of mistakes to be open and honest to know like how I can tempo my day out and stuff like that. But yeah, within the school day though, a lot of the things I did weren't also literacy. A lot of it I did since I have like an art background and stuff like that. If teachers, the teachers were asking me to make posters and paint classrooms, and so I was like, that's all great, but like you need to do other things like that too. But also, it's much easier to like provide a poster. It's much easier for you to, as a Peace Corps volunteer, to give like a poster to a teacher than to teach a teacher of the 25 years. So like, hey, maybe you should time your lesson plans, or like you should write out your lesson plans and stuff like that. So that definitely was not possible, like say the first month or so like that. You find yourself doing, I wouldn't say it's wasted. It's just like it takes you time to navigate and build the proper networks within the school and also within the community and stuff like that. And I think a lot of my secondary projects helped me like diffuse tension, but also like lean elsewhere when times are tough at school or times are tough within the community and stuff like that. And it just shows you like there's not like bad days. It's really just a couple bad moments or a couple bad, if you can get through it. And I mean, if you have, I don't know, I can't speak for the openness of time you had there, but you do find a lot of time in your hands within the Peace Corps. And like, I think if you can spend it in ways that aren't just Netflix, it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know, my first year was pretty slow, so I was an ag volunteer and just trying to get the community to sort of to work with me, because they saw me as a white American. It's like, oh, you don't know anything about farming. It's like, well, actually, I grew up farming my whole life. And like, no, you're probably from the city. We don't believe you. I was like, okay, well, so I just had to find something to do with my time. So I ended up doing a literacy project with a bunch of other volunteers, and we created children's books in local languages. So we did that. That was another project, and I actually started a karate club and built a gym that reminded me a lot of the gym that I saw in the photos that you sent me. So that's how I occupied my time my first year, but it really helped me get integrated into my community. So then the second year, they're like, okay, maybe we'll listen to you about this farming stuff you keep telling us about.
Exactly. So I remember I was probably like maybe 5 or 6 weeks within my village, within the village here. And the guy was like, so like, when are you going home? I was like, I'm not going home for a while, man. It's like, I just got here. And then we ended up talking and stuff like that. But definitely, because a lot of the experience here, I mean, up here in the rural areas of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, you really wouldn't see a white American often. They're not. It's a beautiful, beautiful country, but like the tourism industry is in no way what you'd see in like Barbados or Grenada or Dominica or St. Lucia, and even through the Upper Antilles too, because we're in the Lesser Antilles right now. And I mean, for instance, like we just got the international airport just got opened, and it took them like 8 years to build it, but I think it was supposed to take like 4 on paper. Mm-hmm. But that was that door is open now. So hopefully, I'm really hoping that some of these, there's a lot of beauty out here, especially in the area I live. There's a lot of just like uncharted trails and stuff like that. But a lot of what you're saying with the first year is like, yeah, you just find other ways. Like you're going to drive yourself crazy. And I feel like I know I had my experience with AmeriCorps, but I know a lot of people when I was going through PST or the training, that if people aren't known to the many acronyms of the Peace Corps organization, a lot of expectations are super, super, super high. And a lot of people that had that, I mean, everyone has the reason. A lot of those people ET'd, which early terminated. But I think it's like if you can find things that like, whether even if it's doing a secondary project or just like spending a day like exploring, like you gotta take personal health days, and you gotta take days whether your physical health is bothering your mental health, and that's something that's like very. I mean, you don't often get that in the U.S., but you have that fluidity here what you're doing, because you can really, it's almost like not like a monk or something, but you're living it 24/7. Like as an educator, and when you're walking through in the halls of the school in the U.S., the kids are always watching you. Like it's like a play with no backstage. Here, it's like a play with no backstage for like over 2 years. And but at first it seems very constricting, and sometimes it does seem a little constricting when people are like, "Oh, you're going to buy toilet paper again." It's like you buy a lot of cheese, or like you buy a lot of groceries. It's like I saw you liming at the park, or I saw you whining during carnival or something like that. But also it is really helpful too when people are like, I saw your back door was open, you need help with it, or like I had a break-in in my house and like people banned, no one got hurt, nothing got stolen. And I got burglar bars and stuff like that. But I'm very lucky. I know for some other volunteers within the EC and then within other parts of the world, they're not always so lucky. But that constrictiveness is very, I don't know, I appreciate it now. But definitely, but when people see that you're here for the right reasons and not just as like a tourist to drink their rum and check out, there's not that many beaches here, check out whatever they're selling that comes out of the countryside. I think they take you a lot more, they don't take you for granted. And it's definitely been I wholeheartedly enjoyed the time that I've had just to like transfer from one project to another, but also like sharing with people that get to visit, or also like there's a lot of interconnectivity with the Peace Corps volunteers here, so we'll help each other out in certain projects and stuff like that if you can. We're lucky enough that we can.
So in your service, I know you've probably had hundreds of amazing memories that you really really enjoyed that are going to be the stories that you're going to tell for years to come. But do you have one or two memories that really stand out to you as being, one of your favorites?
Anytime I've my parents got to visit and my girlfriend's gotten to visit quite a few times, and then seeing, hopefully my parents get to visit again, but it's such a positive experience seeing like the people in the village or the community telling like my girlfriend like, "Oh, you're back home again," and stuff like that. Or like being able, even like I'm 1,000 times more comfortable than when I first got here. And like now, like I can go to school. There are times that she's been here, I can go to school and she can stay at the house and stuff like that. And I guess a really good specific one to that was like the recent graduation that we just had. And the grade 6, when I was talking about that testing before, usually South Rivers has been one of the lower rated schools within the country. And then recently for the CPEA exam, which is it's like the SAT almost to get the kids in the secondary school. Usually the school had, I guess maybe 5-6 years ago, a very low passing grade, and that's like a lot of kids were failing the test. But this year, out of graduating class, and it was a really small graduating class, but it's first time in South Rivers history, it was 100% pass rate. So that's a really big thing. And about like, I want to say 7 or 8 of those kids are going to those town schools in the capital. So that was a big aha moment. And especially that, like, I'm glad that Caroline, my girlfriend, was able to like share that excitement, because the graduation was crazy. The kids like organized, the kids stuff and stuff like that. And it's cool to see like people herding goats and then kids walking with like a freshly made, handmade like graduation gown or something like that. So this recent graduation that just happened was probably one of the highlights, and it kind of made it clear that like I'm in here for the right reason. Like you got to use that opportunity to keep going. Because not that the bar is raised, but I know like if someone came in fresh, they'd have to go through a lot of issues I went through. So maybe save them a little bit of trouble and lay some more of that groundwork or whatever the school needs. And I guess that's a big one. Another really big one stands out in my mind. It was I know I didn't send it into her, but working with the national team my first year I was here, and I got connected through a Peace Corps volunteer who extended many years, and she was from Philadelphia, and that's where I went to school outside in the Philly suburbs and served, but I also played rugby within there, and I saw that like the mutual friends when I was coming in, I was like, oh, this person's in St Vincent the Grenadines. I actually connected with her before I knew I was in St Vincent. And she was actually one of the reasons she talked to the APCD, and it's probably one of the reasons I ended up in St. Vincent. So it's kind of cool that like I love rugby, and for various reasons, but I love the communal sense like that, because you leave it, you play the game, then you come together afterwards to do whatever. So like it stays on the field. And so they had a big opportunity. They actually had, it was for the World Cup, the next Rugby World Cup in Tokyo. No, yeah, Japan. It's gonna be all after Japan, but they're having Jamaica come in. They're having the first World Cup qualifying match of that tournament. The qualifying matches in St. Vincent, so that was a really big day, not only for rugby on the sport, but also for the island and stuff. So it's cool to be helping with the training and the coaching and stuff like that. And though the game did not go well, like they didn't win, but you couldn't say they didn't lay it out on the field, and it was really something special, because like they had like they brought the World Cup to the island, and that was like crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
So I got to meet the guy who carries the World Cup to like place to place, and he's really funny. He's like, I hate my job. He's like, so you only get like one. He's like, he doesn't hate his job. He's like, I only get like one carry on. He's like, this thing is super heavy. And it's like, he'd be like super. And it was like interactions like that. And he told me before the Peace Corps that like I get to play a sport I love. I get to do it with kids, and I get to do it with like young adults, and I get to check out other parts of the island and stuff like that. So that was a cool event. And then after that, trying to use the momentum from that within the youth program, especially within the village. And that was another thing that especially helps, because a lot of people were at that. And then I would go into different communities and be like, oh, you were there at that, or like, oh, I see you coming to town often and leaving. Like you come in late and you leave late, because there's not many. It requires you to come back late. With the transport system, but like they see you not only within the community but the island as like someone doing some positive within it. So yeah, that was against Jamaica, and they had a really good team. That was a good game, but it was a cool day because also like a bunch of Peace Corps volunteers got to help. Some of them helped run the bar, some of them helped do some other social things, and then they had a big culminating line, or just like a get together in the evening with both teams, and everyone had helped out. And so that was a really good time. And then, but yeah, it's just trying to use those two experiences to just kind of keep the positive momentum going through the service. I have no doubt that it's going to keep moving. I'm feeling it. It's going to keep moving for the third and final lap.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess on the opposite side of that, what are some of those times, that weren't so great? Those memories that you hope never to relive.
Getting Zika was pretty bad. Zika wasn't. I wouldn't recommend getting Zika. That was a bad one. Just because I remember like getting sick. I've gotten food poisoning a bunch of times, and I don't know what's like in other countries, but that was a joke. But like sometimes you get like stomach problems. The food standards aren't always the right, and maybe you got to go to the bathroom somewhere that's not your house. But Zika just knocks you out back for like a week. And I'm lucky I didn't get dengue or anything like that. And there hasn't been anything this year, which is really good. But I remember like getting Zika, and like the way it is, like you can get there are like rum shops in the community, and then there's like small shops, which is basically like akin to like a bodega or like a corner store, something you'd see in like the U.S. They don't make chopped cheese or anything like that, but you can usually get like certain like staple food, like sometimes ground provision, salt fish and stuff like that. But this was I didn't have any food at my house. I remember I had to I live inland, so I honestly don't get to eat fish that much. But sometimes I got lucky. They'll sell fish or like butcher stuff off the back of a truck. So when I had Zika, I had to buy fish, and I had usually they cut it for you, and the guy was in a rush or something. He wasn't able to do it, so I got all this fish, and I was like, what the hell am I going to do with this? And I was sick and in the back of my yard, like in the sun, just like sweating and like all this fish guts all over me. That's a pain I really wouldn't want on anyone's on anyone's conscience. In terms of like other, I mean, that's probably that was probably because that lasted for a little bit over a week, and that night you have to be pretty living here in the village. You're like always physically active, so like I was sore for like a while after that. You make such positive human connections, like people watching out for you. When people found out I was sick, they're like, oh, you should have done this with the fish, and they helped me with that, or like asking local recipes, or like your van drivers and conductors. The list is endless. The positive interactions, I could probably count maybe on one hand the negative ones, maybe less than a couple fingers within my community. But definitely I worry 1,000 times more for my friends and the kids here, because there is within the island is a big local drug trade for like illegal marijuana usage. And then like if they're taking that out, other stuff is coming in. And we actually met, and that leads to a big reason why there is like a lot of poverty out there. You have people using drugs like cocaine and stuff like that, amphetamines and stuff like that, because the marijuana is being traded for that, and it leads to gun violence, stuff like that. And so I'm 1,000 times more worried for my friends and my local community members. And so you have such great community interactions. There's a family that I was really close with when I came into the village, and she was very close with all the Peace Corps in the past prior to me. So, and that's always, I don't know if you had that experience, yet sometimes filling the shoes of the person before you, or like that's a very unique equation to deal with.
The guy that I replaced apparently was like a language genius, so he knew he knew French and like 4 local languages. Yeah. And I came in and I barely say my name, so it's just
the guy, the Peace Corps that was before me was like a basketball buff, and I'm short and stocky and a rugby player. I get beat up for 80 minutes, so I was like I'll play defense. I'll make some nasty picks. But there's a family that I was really, really close with when I came into the village, and she was very close with like all the Peace Corps. It was a grandmother, and so when I was talking about the Grenadine Islands, a lot of the cases there's not many work opportunities here within the island, so people got to work abroad. You got to work on cruise ships. It's really hard to get into the U.S. on a visa as a Vincentian, but you can get into Canada, you can get into the UK. We have people working for long stints at a time. There's a family, there's a boy, the boy is in secondary school, Sion. I'm really close with him. And it was just the course of the year, you had such great interactions, like going hiking with his family, or like hanging with them, lying with them, just talking with people. I mean, like it's you get to know their stories and such. And but his mother worked on one of the Grenadine Islands, and his dad is separate from them, and there's a lot of intricacies with family interplay and stuff like that. It's just different to our culture in the U.S. Not everyone has like a man and a wife. You might have multiple families and such like that. But that's a whole other thing. But you gotta withhold your judgment from that. But around this time last year, his grandmother got really sick and passed away. And so like he was kind of him and his sisters were kind of left on their own, like fend for on their own. And parts of the community and parts of their family were able to pick them up and such like that, or take care. A lot of people hop from aunts to aunties, or aunts or uncles or cousins and such like that. But I was lucky that like my family, my parents, when they visited, were able to meet, and like not necessarily like monetarily, but just like being there for like counseling and stuff like that, trying to help through a time. My grandmother passed away at a very similar time too, and I was actually really lucky on the Peace Corps. I was able to go home and be there to see her before she passed away, and so all this stuff kind of happened at a close time. And so we cut to a couple weeks ago. A lot of the talking about people working abroad in the Grenadines, like some of these they got to do it to support the family. It's very grinding, and it's like the infrastructure is not always good, or like going between the islands, the ferry can be kind of expensive. So sometimes people take private boats or smaller boats, and it's like terrible. 6 people went down in a boat, very small 20-minute drive, and one of the people happened to be his mother. So that was just like that happened. That was terrible.
Wow.
And that was around the same time as grandmother passed away. And it's the thing, like you get like these amazingly positive human interactions that you'll never forget, and then you get the real reality. I'm sorry, this is getting really dark, but you get both of it, and it is a gray. It's not light and dark. It's a mix, and out of that, I mean, it was heartbreaking for me, my girlfriend, my parents, because we met the mother many times, and you're just like, oh my God. And then, but it was amazing to see the community come together around that. They had a huge candlelight vigil. He's really into biking, and I was able to help him connect with some people I know in the U.S. that like since I'm extending, I'll hopefully be able to bring some biking supplies for him off of that. But then like the story isn't over. So then last Saturday, he was coming over to my house to grab some supplies for carnival. He's in secondary school. He was around 16 years old and got hit by a car.
Oh,
it's crazy. And I was like, it's like, oh my God, it's like terribly. He didn't die, but he was like within like the pictures, he could have died so easily. Because some people drive really safe, but some people drive really recklessly out here. And he didn't have his helmet on, and I found out about it. He was supposed to come to my house, and then I didn't hear from him. So we were walking now. We were walking to actually get to the Capitol to get ready for carnival stuff, to meet with people for someone's birthday, and then just like pick up supplies and stuff like that. And I walked past his aunt's house, and I was like, "Yo, you know where you know where brother is?" And he's like, "You didn't hear?" And I was like, "I knew." And I was like, "Oh, so yeah, he got hit by a car like the minute he spoke to me. After he spoke to me, and so." I was able to like get her phone number, and then there's a hospital in the countryside that like they usually take people for trauma, and I'm glad that it was a long day, but I'm glad we were able to check there, and then they actually found that they took him to the Capitol, so we were going to the Capitol anyway, and I was able to connect with his father and his sisters and such. And he's fine now. It's no surgery, no nothing. Sometimes they thought sometimes when people have really bad leg injuries, there's a keenness to kind of amputate or whatnot. But he was really messed up, and he's back at home now. But we were able to see him on Sunday. That happened Sunday, and I'm talking to him over Facebook and stuff. But yeah, that like I was saying earlier, I'm 1,000% more worried about my friends and the people I'm connected with here, because like if anything bad happens here, like the Peace Corps will pull you out.
Yeah.
Like they'll send you back. Oh, you got health care. Like you'll get like I know like when we've done the conferences, they do a lot of the conferences in St. Lucia. Like I had a leg injury, and I was able to get X-rays and stuff like that. A lot of the stuff here, it's like it's dependent on the local clinic, if there's a local clinic, and if it's open and stuff like that. You hear stories of. You hear tons of stories of people not making it in time or whatnot. But yeah, that's definitely that's probably the most recent toughness that's been happening, like tough spot. But it just shows that like people react to death here much differently than we do. For the funeral that we had for my grandmother was night and day considered to any West Indian funeral I've been here, because here it's something almost like you'd see in New Orleans, or like it's a huge parade, like a whole village, like thousands of people from other communities come like that, and they set up vending, and people make a lot of money off of them and stuff like that. But it's like a celebration, and it's something that I definitely appreciate. I'm aware of so much more here, is that like it's not in like a dark perspective, but their livelihoods are much tied to reality of like life and death out here. And that's only in the EC. I can only imagine in parts of the world where you have like major food droughts or major like conflict areas and stuff like that, or areas of the Peace Corps where they've had to pull out for like a coup or a revolution or something like that. And so it just shows you like there is the initial sense of guilt, but there's like, if you're lucky to feel guilt, that means like you're alive. And if you're lucky to feel alive, that means you could do something. And if you're already in the Peace Corps, or you don't need to be in the Peace Corps to bring about like positive social change, but like it kind of shows that like any step you take to bringing something good around, whether it's in your community or the people around you, is something that's it's gonna be for the better. So it's definitely it's definitely putting the fuel under my butt to keep pushing forward.
Well, I definitely wish you the best in your third year. But to end out the show, I usually like to ask everybody if they have a favorite quote or a local saying that they would like to share with everybody.
Yeah, I'm probably going to embarrass myself because my Vincy dialect isn't always the best. But a really simple one is this: if someone's like, "How are you doing?" Say like, "Me day." So I'm good. Me day is like I'm good, and so like that's a Vincentian dialect, which is like totally verbal and stuff like that. But me day, or like you say like, "Oh yeah, me day, I'm good," or like Irie is like something that's more akin to like Jamaican patois. But it's just like a super simple like local way of saying like I'm good, and you hear that all over with it, whether it's up in the countryside or down in the capital of Kingstown, and it's kind of just like a very Vincy way of saying like, "Yeah, I'm good." And people, if you ask someone if you're good, they'll be like, "Yeah, I'm good." It's like if they're bad, they're like, "Oh no, I'll tell you straight up," and we'll spend a handful of time talking about it. Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing. Just like, I don't know, just appreciating what you have, but also just like it shows that like they're there to listen to you if something's going on.
Okay, me day.
Yeah, me day.
Right. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah. And I mean, this conversation has been very good. So I thank you for taking the time, and I'm glad that we were able to speak. Even you being in the Peace Corps in the field right now. So that's been a definite pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for doing this, man. I think it's a good outlet and a good opportunity for the other people out there that are interested. Mm-hmm. So thank you, man, for this.
No, thank you. It's been a great conversation. Thank you, everybody, for listening to today's episode. Once again, if you want to stay better connected with me and the My Peace Corps Story podcast, head on over to mypeacecorpsstory.com. If you want to know more about my personal Peace Corps story, please check out my new book, Service Disrupted, available on Amazon. Every volunteer has a story. What's yours?